Hey there, welcome back to my kitchen. Today's video is going to be a little bit different because I'm sharing our top 14 recipes of the year. I haven't shared as many videos this year, so I don't have 25 like I have the past 2 years, but we are celebrating my 3-year anniversary here on YouTube. So let's go ahead and get started and I'll show you our top favorite recipes from the past year. First up today, we're making some roasted tomato basil soup. To begin, I am just going to go ahead and preheat my oven to 400 degrees. Then moving over here to my cutting board, I have about 3 pounds of Roma tomatoes. I did wash those really well, and now I'm just going to slice them all in half. Moving over here to my little baking sheet, I lined it with some aluminum foil just to make cleanup a bit easier. You're just going to transfer all of your tomatoes over here skin side down. It's going to take up most of your baking sheet, but that's okay, just leave a little bit of room in the center. I'm going to lightly spray these with some avocado oil spray and then sprinkle them all over with some salt and pepper. Next, you will need an entire bulb of garlic. I'm just going to remove any loose pieces from the outside, and then you're just going to take a knife and cut off the end that is more pointed. And then it should look like this after you cut the end off. Grab another piece of aluminum foil that is big enough to wrap around the garlic bulb. I added some avocado oil on top of mine and sprinkled it with salt and pepper. And then I loosely wrapped it with the aluminum foil, kind of tenting the top of the foil over top of the garlic bulb. Then you'll just add that right in the middle of all of the tomatoes. I move the tomatoes around just a little bit more, and then this is going into the oven to bake for right around 50 to 55 minutes. Now I'm going to take 1 yellow onion and I'm just going to slice this onion up. You could add this to your baking sheet if you want to, but I actually prefer to do it this way. I'm going to melt 2 tablespoons of butter into a large pot on my stovetop. Once the butter has melted, add in the onions and sprinkle with a little bit more salt and pepper. I'm going to let these onions cook in here for about 15 minutes or so until they are nice and tender. Here is what the tomatoes and the garlic will look like after that 50 to 55 minutes in the oven. At this point, the garlic should be very soft and you should be able to squeeze it out of the garlic bulb very easily. Now I'm going to begin transferring over all of my tomatoes into my onions. The onions should be good to go at this point, so once you get all the tomatoes in, then you can also add in your garlic. Then you'll need to add in 1.5 cups of chicken broth. Low sodium works fine if you like to use that. About 1 teaspoon of oregano and a handful of fresh basil. Next, you're just going to take an immersion blender, or if you don't have an immersion blender, you can use a regular blender as well. I'm just going to blend all of this soup up until it's nice and smooth. If you don't have an immersion blender, it's one of my favorite kitchen tools, so I'm going to link mine down below in case you're interested in that. Now I'm just going to add a couple tablespoons of heavy cream in here, a little bit of salt and pepper to my taste, and just a small handful of Parmesan cheese. Give that a good mix, let everything warm through, and then it's ready to go. I like to top mine with some Parmesan cheese. This is a shaved Parmesan, and a little bit more heavy cream on the top. On the side, I made some of my favorite 3 cheese grilled cheese to go along with it. It's delicious dipped in this soup. And then I also topped it with just a little bit of parsley for some color. And now we're going to make this HoneyBBQ onion ring bacon burger. This one was definitely the star of the show. To begin, I am just preheating my oven to 400 degrees, but I'm only doing this so I can cook these onion rings. So make sure you follow the directions on the back of the bag of your onion rings. For this recipe, you will need 4 of the largest onion rings you can find, as well as 4 of the smallest ones you can find in your bag. You want the small ones to fit inside of the larger ones in the end. Now in my cast iron skillet, I'm going to go ahead and start some bacon. I'm going to cook about 6 to 8 slices of bacon in total. Now getting started on the patties, into my bowl I'm adding another pound of ground beef. This one was an 85/15 pack. For the seasonings, I'm using about 1 tablespoon of this hamburger seasoning, half a teaspoon of onion powder, half a teaspoon of garlic powder. Then you're just going to add a couple shakes of salt in here. You definitely don't need to go overboard with the salt. There's going to be a lot of different flavors in this burger. Once that is all mixed, I'm going to go ahead and make those into 4 equal size patties. As you can see, my bacon has finished cooking, so I'm just adding that over into a paper towel, and I'm going to go ahead and reuse this skillet. It does have a little bit of bacon grease in there. I drained some of it, that way they wouldn't be drowning in the grease, but there's still enough in here to add some good flavor into the burgers. While the burgers are cooking, I'm going to go ahead and take 1 jalapeno, this is a fresh jalapeno, and slice that into little slices, seeds included. And now into this little bowl, we're going to make the honey barbecue sauce. For this, you will need 2 tablespoons of honey, along with 2 tablespoons of your favorite barbecue sauce. I believe mine was smoky, so it did add a little bit of extra smoky flavor in here. Give this a mix together, and then you can just set it aside for right now. I'm cooking my burgers for about 3 to 4 minutes per side, but if you like yours to be a little bit more done, then you can cook them just a little bit longer than that. Once they were done cooking, I went ahead and removed them to a plate with a paper towel, just so they wouldn't be dripping in grease. As soon as I take them out of the skillet, I'm going to go ahead and add on my cheese. Today we are using some sliced Gouda cheese. Give that just a minute to melt, and then you can go ahead and start building your burgers. For this one, I did go ahead and toast my brioche buns. Onto the bottom of the brioche bun, you will add your burger patty with the Gouda cheese. On top of that, add just a couple pieces of bacon. Then you will add your larger onion ring and put the smaller onion ring right in the center. On top of that, you'll add your sliced jalapenos, and then you can drizzle that honey barbecue sauce over top. Add the top part of the bun, and then this is ready to go. Here's what my plate looked like in the end. I was trying to recreate this burger from a local restaurant, and it honestly turned out so good. I was very pleased with it in the end. Both me and my husband love this burger. I will definitely be making this again in the future. And as you can see on the side there, I made some baked beans and some white cheddar macaroni and cheese. Up next, we're making this Orzo chicken sausage skillet. To begin, I like to take a pack of chicken sausages. Today I am using Chipotle, but sometimes I use jalapeno as well. I'm just going to add those into my air fryer basket and cook those on 390 degrees for about 6 to 8 minutes. Now moving over here to my skillet, I'm going to add about a tablespoon or so of avocado oil in here and let that get nice and hot. Into that oil, I'm going to add about 1 tablespoon of minced garlic, and I'm just going to let this cook for about 30 seconds to a minute until I can smell it nice and strong. Next, I'm taking 1 cup of dry orzo. You're just going to add that right in here, mix it up with the garlic and the oil, and let that orzo brown up for a couple of minutes. Once you begin to see some light color popping up on the orzo, then you can go ahead and add in 2 cups of low sodium chicken broth. Once that starts to slightly bubble, you can go ahead and add in a 1/2 cup of heavy cream. You'll also want to add 1 tablespoon of coconut aminos or low sodium soy sauce, 1/2 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, and about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Give this a good stir, and then you're also going to add in about a 1/4 cup of frozen spinach. Give this one more good stir, and then you're just going to let it simmer on a low to medium heat until the orzo has absorbed all of the liquid. Once all the liquid is gone from the pan, then you're going to go ahead and add your sausage in. As you can see, I did slice it up. And you're also going to add in a 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese. Here's what it should look like when it's all done. I do like to top it with just a little bit more Parmesan cheese in our bowls. I find this recipe to be very simple. It really does not take that long to make. It's very, very flavorful. And like I said earlier, it is one of our favorite meals to have. The only thing I don't like is it doesn't really make a lot, so if you want to feed a lot of people, you will definitely need to double this recipe. Up next, we're making some serious comfort food. We're going to make these cheesy scalloped potatoes. For this one, I am going to go ahead and preheat my oven to 400 degrees, and then over here to my cutting board, I am just slicing up 1 yellow onion. Then moving over here to my skillet, I'm adding a tablespoon of avocado oil and a tablespoon of butter. Once that is nice and hot, I'm going to go ahead and add those onions in there, breaking them apart a little bit, and then lightly seasoning them with just a little bit of salt and pepper. I let those onions cook for about 15 minutes or so until they had some good color on them and they were nice and tender. Now I'm just going to go ahead and remove these out of the pan and set them aside for right now. Into my skillet, I'm going to go ahead and melt 3 tablespoons of butter, and once that's melted, add in 1 tablespoon of minced garlic. I let that garlic cook for about a minute or so before adding in my flour. You'll need to add in 4 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. Whisk that all together, making sure to get every bit of flour mixed in, and then you're just going to let this flour cook for about 2 minutes or so. Once you start to see some bubbles, then you can begin slowly adding in your half and half. In total, you'll need about 3 cups of half and half, and I'm just going to add a little bit, mix it in, give it a moment to thicken up, and then I'll add some more and just keep repeating that until I've added in all of the half and half and it has thickened up. For the seasonings, I'm going to be adding in a 1/2 teaspoon of mustard powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 dashes of cayenne pepper, and a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. Give that a quick mix together, and now we're going to add in 2 cups of freshly shredded mild cheddar cheese. Once the cheese has completely melted into the sauce, then you're going to add in 2 tablespoons of room temperature cream cheese, and you're also going to go ahead and add your onions back in at this time. If your cream cheese is not room temperature, you're going to want to throw it into the microwave for about 30 seconds or so to soften it up, or else it's going to be really hard to combine with the cheese sauce. At this point, I did give it a little taste and decided to add just a little bit of salt and pepper in here. Once you have your cheese sauce done, go ahead and turn the burner off and just let it sit there while you prepare your potatoes. Here I have one larger baking potato along with 3 smaller ones. I'm just going to go ahead and wash those really well, peel them, and then slice them all up pretty thin. Next, you will be needing a 9x13 casserole dish. I am going to go ahead and spray it down with some nonstick spray just in case. And then you're just going to start layering your potatoes in here. I overlap mine just a little bit. It really doesn't cause any problems. Once half of the potatoes are in the pan, then you're going to grab your cheese sauce and add half of the cheese sauce on top. Spread the cheese sauce over all the potatoes, making sure to cover them completely. Now we're just going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to take the rest of the potatoes and line them all up in here, except this time I'm going to start on the opposite side and work my way over. This time I did have a little bit extra potato that I did not use. It was just a little bit too much, but that's okay. Now just taking the rest of the cheese sauce, I'm going to add that over the top and once again spread it all over, making sure to cover the potatoes all around the edges. Now grab a piece of foil and add that over the top, and this is going to go in your oven to bake for about 45 to 50 minutes until the potatoes are fork tender. I did bake mine for 50 minutes and all of mine were fork tender at this point. So now we're going to take some more of that mild cheddar cheese and just cover the top of this. I stuck this back in the oven for about 10 minutes or until the top of it starts to brown up a little bit, just like this. If you're having trouble getting that brown color on top, you can also turn the broiler on for a minute or two. Just make sure you're keeping a close eye on it. Here is what my finished plate looked like in the end. There are the potatoes. They're looking beautiful as ever. And then along with this, I did make some Italian style green beans and some ham steaks. These potatoes are such a wonderful comfort food. I absolutely love these. They're cheesy. And if you don't like the onions, you can skip that step, but I do think they add some good flavor in there. If you wanted to, you could even take some ham and chop it up and add it into the potatoes and bake those right in there as well. And now we're going to make this beautiful fruit tray along with my grandma's fruit dip. To begin, you'll want to add in 1 block of room temperature cream cheese along with 1 large container of marshmallow fluff. I will list down below in the description box the ounces for everything and all the ingredients. The marshmallow fluff can be really hard to get out of the container, but once you get it out and all in the bowl, you can go ahead and mix those two together until nice and smooth. Next, you're going to add about 1 tablespoon of strawberry jello mix. You do not need a ton of this at all. You might even want to use just a little bit less than a tablespoon to start. You can always add more, but you'll just get that mixed together until the dip is looking nice and pink. Once the dip is all mixed together, you can add it into a bowl and just refrigerate that for at least a half an hour to allow the jello to not be grainy in the fruit dip. This is what it should look like in the end. I put this on a fruit tray with some beautiful strawberries, blueberries, some pineapple, grapes, and kiwi. I recommend doing mostly strawberries with this though. We had this fruit dip at my high school graduation party and at my wedding reception, and both times the very first thing to be gone was the strawberries. So definitely stock up on the strawberries if you're going to make this, and try not to let it sit out in the heat too long. Next up, we're going to be making this rigatoni pasta, but with a twist. We're going to be adding in some Boursin cheese to this. To begin, I am just going to go ahead and start cooking up 1 pound of ground beef. I'm also adding in half of a yellow onion in there for some extra flavor. And I do want to remind you, because I do have people ask occasionally, if you do not like onion, then just skip the onion. You don't have to add it if you don't want to. We really love onion. I love the flavor of onion, so I do add it to a lot of my recipes. Once that ground beef is fully done cooking, go ahead and drain off any grease that you may have, and then add in about 1 to 2 teaspoons of minced garlic. I'm going to let this cook in here for about 30 seconds to a minute until I can smell the garlic nice and strong. For the seasonings, I'm adding in 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, and 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. This is optional, but you can also add in some red pepper flakes. I added in about a 1/4 teaspoon of that. Get all those seasonings combined and then add in 1 jar of your favorite pasta sauce. Next, you're going to want to add in 4 cups of beef broth and give this a really good stir to combine everything. Once combined, go ahead and add in 1 box of rigatoni pasta. Give this another good stir together. Try to make sure the pasta is all down in the liquid, and then you're going to let this come to a simmer and cook until all the liquid has disappeared and the pasta is tender. Once the pasta is cooked, go ahead and add in your Boursin cheese. It just comes in a little box just like this. You'll add the entire thing. To avoid breaking up the pasta, I just like to kind of put it in the middle, cover it with the pasta, and let it melt for a minute. Then I use my spoon and just fold the pasta and the Boursin cheese together. Here's what my plate looked like in the end. This pasta is so good. I love Boursin cheese. It's delicious. Adding it into something like this is so good. It brings so much flavor into this. On top, I just added some shaved Parmesan cheese along with a little bit of parsley. But overall, this meal was 10 out of 10. I would make it again and again and again. We both loved it and almost ate the entire pan this night. Next up today, we're making these easy steak quesadillas. To begin, I am just slicing up half of a yellow onion, and then moving over to my stovetop, I'm adding about 2 to 3 tablespoons of butter into my cast iron skillet. Once the butter is fully melted, I'm going to go ahead and cook the onion in here. You can season the onion if you want to with a little bit of salt and pepper, but it's really not necessary, so you don't have to do that. Cook these onions until they have got some color on them. At that point, even if they're not all the way done yet, that's okay. Go ahead and add in your steak. I'm using 1 package of this beef shaved steak today. Using a fork, I'm just going to try to break this apart a little bit, that way it cooks a little bit more even. Now this steak is going to cook very quickly, so I'm going to go ahead and add in my seasonings. I'm adding in 1 tablespoon of taco seasoning, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, half a teaspoon of onion powder, and then just a couple shakes of salt and pepper. Get this mixed together, continue breaking up the steak if needed, and let this cook until the steak is no longer pink. This should only take a couple of minutes. Now moving over to my griddle, I'm just spraying a little bit of avocado spray on there and then adding my tortilla on there. I'm using a burrito sized tortilla, adding in some of this queso quesadilla cheese. Over top the cheese, you can go ahead and add just a couple spoonfuls of your steak. There is no right or wrong amount, just add as much as you need. And then over top of the steak, we're using this Chipotle sauce from Taco Bell. I tried this a couple weeks ago for the first time and now I'm obsessed with it, so I really wanted to make these steak quesadillas and I'm so happy I did. If you don't like this sauce, you can replace it with any kind you want. Walmart carries several different Taco Bell sauces, so you can use a different one if you like, or just add salsa or something along those lines. But I definitely recommend this Chipotle sauce because it is fantastic. After adding in the Chipotle sauce, go ahead and flip over the other side of the tortilla and let this cook for a minute or two until each side has browned up nicely. Here's what my finished plate looked like in the end. I did just go ahead and cut this into 4 equal pieces so it would be easier to pick up and eat. And on the side, I made just a little bit of some cheesy Mexican rice. This meal was so good. We ate every bit of this night and I cannot wait to make it again. Next up, we're making these cheesy garlic breadsticks. For this one, you will need to preheat your oven to 400 degrees. Of course, you will be needing 1 can of pizza dough, and you will need a smaller baking sheet just like this, lined with some parchment paper. I'm going to go ahead and just stretch this dough out to make sure that it is covering the entire pan. Now into this little bowl here, I have about 2 tablespoons of butter, 1 teaspoon of minced garlic, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of oregano, a 1/2 teaspoon of parsley, and a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. Stick this in your microwave and just let it melt for about 30 seconds and it should be looking something like this. Now we're going to take this mixture and add all of it onto the dough. I'm just using a little brush here and I'm going to make sure that every little bit of this dough is covered with this butter seasoning mix. Now of course you are going to be needing some cheese, so I'm going to take about 1 to 1.5 cups of shredded mozzarella cheese. I did freshly shred this and this is a whole milk mozzarella, which I do think melts a lot better. And then you will just cover all of this dough with that mozzarella cheese. On top of the mozzarella, we're also going to add about a 1/4 to a 1/2 cup of shredded Parmesan cheese. We did already add parsley underneath of the cheese, but I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle the top with a little bit more just to add some color to the top of the breadsticks. Now this is going into the oven to bake for about 10 to 12 minutes until it's looking something like this. My husband actually came home from work this day and asked why I ordered breadsticks from a pizza place that is down the road from us to go along with our spaghetti, and I told him that I made them homemade, and he was kind of shocked by that because they honestly did taste just like the pizza place that we have down the street. So I took that as a very nice compliment. They did turn out really, really good. I especially love these edge pieces. They got a little crispier along the edges, but that made them extra good. And like I said, we just had them alongside some simple spaghetti. Next up, we're just going to make this macaroni lasagna. You will need to go ahead and preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Now moving over here to my skillet, I'm adding in 1 pound of ground beef along with half of a yellow onion that I chopped up. And then you will just let these two cook in here together until it is cooked all the way through. Meanwhile, back here I have a pot of water going. I'm going to go ahead and cook 2 boxes of this shells and cheese. It doesn't matter what brand you use, any shells and cheese will do. Now back up here to my skillet, my ground beef is done, so I'm going to go ahead and add about 2 teaspoons of minced garlic in here. Go ahead and let that cook for just a minute. Now my noodles are done, so I'm going to go ahead and drain off the water from those, bring it back over to the stove, and then add in the 2 packets of cheese that came in the boxes. Now to start building this macaroni lasagna, you will need a 9x13 casserole dish. Spray it down with a little bit of nonstick spray and then add in half of your macaroni. On top of the macaroni, you'll add half of your ground beef. Next, add half a jar of spaghetti sauce just right over the top. It doesn't have to be perfect, just drizzle it the best you can. Next, I'm adding half a cup of shredded mozzarella cheese with 1/4 cup of freshly shredded Parmesan cheese. And now you'll just go ahead and repeat all those layers, starting off with the macaroni and cheese, then the ground beef, the spaghetti sauce, and ending with another 1/2 cup of shredded mozzarella cheese and 1/4 cup of freshly shredded Parmesan cheese. Now this is going into the oven to bake for right around 20 to 25 minutes until everything is completely warmed through and the cheese has melted nicely. Here's what my plate looked like in the end. I went ahead and just made some hamburger bun garlic bread just to use up some of the buns I had in my refrigerator. And then I also just made a small side salad there. This meal is so simple and easy, however, it is really, really good. We really enjoyed this one. I will link this recipe down below for you. I don't think I followed it to a T, however, I still followed it pretty closely and this was amazing. Next up, another recipe that I would say was 10 out of 10 this week is this Chipotle chicken burger, and for this one I'm going to begin by making our homemade Chipotle mayo. Into a bowl you'll need about 1/2 cup of mayonnaise along with a 1/2 teaspoon of Chipotle chili powder and a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. Only 3 ingredients, but we love having this on burgers or chicken, and it's really good to dip your french fries into. You'll just give that a good mix together. It should look something like this, and then you'll set it aside or add it into the refrigerator until everything else is ready. Next, we're going to chop up 1/2 of a yellow onion, and with this onion you want to make sure you chop it up pretty fine. After it's chopped up, you can go ahead and add it into a larger bowl. Along with the onion, you're also going to need about 3 chipotle peppers. These are just some peppers from a can of chipotle peppers and adobo sauce. You can add some of the sauce in here as well. Mine were partially frozen because I had just got them out of the freezer, but you'll just want to make sure that they're cut up in small pieces and then you'll add it in with the onion. Next, add in a 1/4 cup of breadcrumbs, 1 tablespoon of minced garlic, a big pinch of parsley, I'd say this was probably a tablespoon or so, 2 dashes of lime juice, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and finally 1 pound of ground chicken. Now I went ahead and tried to mix this together as much as I could with the fork since there was chipotle peppers in here, and then I pattied them up into 4 separate burgers. Into my large cast iron skillet, I went ahead and added in some avocado oil. I gave that a minute or so to get hot, and then I added in my burgers. These burgers will cook for about 3 to 4 minutes per side over a medium-high heat until they are browned on each side and reaching at least 165 degrees in the center. Now it's time to add the cheese, and today I'm using some sliced pepper jack cheese. We love the pepper jack cheese. It adds another little layer of spice in there and gives it really good flavor. And then here's what my burger looked like in the end. I did choose to add some lettuce, tomato, and red onion on here. I think they pair perfectly, and then once you add the chipotle mayo on there, this burger is just so delicious. Both of us really love this. It is a little spicy, so just beware of that, but overall, 10 out of 10. Now we're going to make these roasted potatoes and broccoli. For this one, you will need to preheat your oven to 400 degrees. And now over to my cutting board. I have a large bowl here. I also have 1 bag of baby yellow potatoes. I did go ahead and wash those really well. And now for these potatoes, I'm going to cut them all in half, and if they're a little larger, then I'll cut them in 3 pieces, but you just want to make sure they're all about the same size. Once they're in the bowl, you can go ahead and add about 2 tablespoons of avocado oil. Now to add the seasonings, I'm adding about a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder, and a 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. Once all of that is in the bowl, I'm going to go ahead and get that all mixed up really well, trying to spread the seasonings around all over the potatoes. Now I'm just going to get out a baking sheet here and add some oil onto the pan. Add the potatoes on there and spread them out as evenly as you can. I stuck these potatoes in the oven for 15 minutes to start. While the potatoes are in the oven, I'm going to go ahead and prepare my broccoli. So I went ahead and soaked and washed this little head of broccoli here, and now I'm just going to cut off all the florets and add them into a bowl. I'm using the same bowl I used for the potatoes. We're going to be using the same seasonings, so that doesn't really matter too much. I just try to make sure none of the florets are too big. You want them to all be kind of bite-sized pieces. Just like before with the potatoes, we're going to go ahead and add about a tablespoon of avocado oil, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic and onion powder, about an 1/8 teaspoon of pepper, a little bit of red pepper flakes, and then get those all mixed together. Here are the potatoes coming out of the oven after 15 minutes. Now you can go ahead and take that broccoli and add it onto the pan as well. Give this a mix together, move the potatoes around, and spread everything out nice and even. Now this is going to go back in the oven for another 15 minutes until the broccoli is fork tender. Here's what it should be looking like after that extra 15 minutes. At this point, I'm going to kind of move them all to the center of the pan, and then we're going to add some cheese. I went ahead and grated up some fresh Parmesan cheese. You can add as much cheese on here as you want. I would say I added about a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup of this Parmesan. Last but not least, I am drizzling them with just a little bit of lemon juice. If you don't like lemon juice, then skip this step. But this is what it'll look like when it is all done. On my plate here, I went ahead and just made some pork chops to go along with this meal. This side dish is honestly very easy. The ingredients are nice and minimal, all nice and simple. And my husband will eat this as well. He just picks out the broccoli, which is fine with me. Next up, we're making some Salsa Verde chicken burritos. To begin with this one, I am going to go ahead and preheat the oven to 350 degrees. And then moving over here to my small crock pot, I'm adding in 2 frozen chicken breasts, about a 1/4 of this jar of Salsa Verde, 1/2 of a yellow onion that I chopped up, 1 small can of green chilies, 2 teaspoons of minced garlic, 1 teaspoon of cumin, and then just give that a mix the best you can. I went ahead and added my lid, and I let this cook on a low heat for about 5 to 6 hours until the chicken was falling apart. At this point, your chicken should be very easy to shred, so go ahead and do that with a fork and mix it all up inside of the crock pot. Moving over here to my 9x13 casserole dish, I'm just going to be using up some of these burrito-sized tortilla shells that I had left in the cabinet. Into each one, I'm going to add a scoop of that shredded chicken with a handful of cheese, and I'm just using whatever cheese I have left at this point once again. And then I'm just going to roll those up nice and tight and add them into my casserole dish. You'll just keep repeating that until you've used all of your ingredients. As you can see, these tortillas were actually a little bit smaller than those other ones, but like I said, we're trying to use up everything we had at this point. Now that those are all rolled up and placed in the casserole dish, I'm just going to let those sit over here for a minute while I prepare the sauce. Into my saucepan, I'm adding about 2 to 3 tablespoons of salted butter, and once that is melted, I'm going to add in about a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. Whisk that together and then let that flour cook for about a minute or so until it's starting to bubble. Now slowly I'm going to start adding in 2 cups of chicken broth, and I'm also going to go ahead and pour in the rest of that Salsa Verde. To season this sauce up, I'm going to add about a 1/2 teaspoon of cumin and just a couple shakes of pepper. Next, into the sauce, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the heat, and we're going to add in some sour cream. I'd say I added about 3/4 of a cup of sour cream in here. I'm just going to go ahead and get that mixed up until the sauce is nice and smooth, and then we're going to transfer it onto the top of our burritos. Spread that sauce around to make sure that all of the burritos are covered, that way the tortillas do not get hard in the oven. And now finally you can add some shredded cheese over the top. I was using mozzarella since that's what I had, but I think that Monterey Jack would be perfect on here. Add about 1 to 2 cups of cheese and then add this into the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes to heat everything through. Here's what it should be looking like when it does come out of the oven. And then this is what my plate looked like in the end. We didn't have a lot of toppings left in the fridge at this point, so I just added some fresh jalapenos and some leftover fire sauce from Taco Bell. These burritos actually turned out to be amazing for a pantry use up what you have kind of meal. We actually would really like to have these again at some point and add some more toppings on there. But the chicken was spectacular inside of there and the sauce just really finished everything up really nice. Next up, we're making some delicious sauteed green beans. With this one, I went ahead and took 1 pound of green beans and I cut the ends off of every single one of them. I also cut off any bad parts and threw away any that just looked too far gone. Once those were all prepared, I went ahead and washed them really well in my sink with some cold water, and then I'm adding them into a skillet that I filled halfway up with water. Let the green beans come to a boil, and as soon as they are fork tender, you can go ahead and dump all the water out of there. Next, I'm adding 2 tablespoons of salted butter with a couple shakes of salt and pepper. You can just do that to taste. Let that butter melt and stir these green beans every once in a while, that way they get some good color on all sides. Once you begin seeing some color, then you can go ahead and add in 1 to 2 teaspoons of minced garlic. Let these continue to cook for about 1 more minute and then they are ready to go. Here's what they were looking like when they were all done. I went ahead and served these with some garlic parmesan pork chops and mashed potatoes. These went together so well. These green beans are buttery, garlicky, and they have a little bit of crisp on the edges, but overall they're still really nice and soft. Last but not least, I decided to throw a dessert recipe in here for you because this cake turned out so good. I'm so glad I filmed it. To begin, we're going to go ahead and mix 2 boxes of this super moist French vanilla cake mix. I do recommend using this specific cake mix for this recipe. Into my large mixing bowl, I added both packages of the cake mix in there. Then following the package directions, I'm going to go ahead and add in 6 eggs, 2/3 cup of oil, and 2 cups of water. Go ahead and get that all mixed together, making sure to scrape the bottom. This cake is going to require 3 separate layers, so I'm going to divide my cake batter into 3 equal parts. This pan here has a removable piece, so you can remove the sides very easy. It's about 8 inches big. I'll try to link something similar down in the description box for you. I added 1/3 of my batter and then I hit this around a little bit to make sure all the bubbles were out of my batter. Then following the box directions, I'm just going to go ahead and bake this in the oven. This is what your cake should be looking like after it's all done. Like I said, you will need 3 of these, so I went ahead and removed that and repeated with the 2nd and 3rd layer. While my cakes are cooling, I'm going to go ahead and get started on my strawberries. For this first part, you will need 2 cups of sliced strawberries. After you get them sliced, add them into a bowl, that way this part is nice and easy. You're also going to need about 2 to 3 tablespoons of strawberry jelly. You'll add that into a separate bowl and microwave it for about 30 seconds, that way it's a little bit thinner. And you're going to just mix it right in with those berries. Moving on, we're pretty much going to do the exact same thing we just did. However, with this one, you only need 1 cup of strawberries, and this time you're going to cube them up into smaller pieces. Once you have your 1 cup of strawberries, you're going to do the same thing with the jelly, but this time you only need 1 tablespoon. Mix that 1 tablespoon of jelly in with those chopped strawberries and just set all of those aside for now. Back over to my mixing bowl, we're going to go ahead and get started on the icing. Into my bowl first, I'm just adding 1 8-ounce block of cream cheese. This cream cheese was not room temperature, however, it was not rock solid from being in the fridge. I let it sit out for about 20 minutes or so. Then once you mix up that cream cheese a little bit, you're going to add 3/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract, along with 1 cup of powdered sugar. I'm going to mix this just a little bit here, and then I'm going to start adding in about 2 1/4 cups of heavy whipping cream, kind of slow, that way it can mix in nicely. Once all of your heavy cream is in here, you just want to mix this for about 5 minutes or so until you're getting some stiff peaks in the icing. This is about the best mine was doing. It was creating peaks, just not as stiff as I wanted them to. It was pretty hot in my kitchen, so it's kind of to be expected, but I still went ahead and used the icing at this point. But if you can get yours a little bit thicker than this, that's ideal. Now I have this little cardboard piece here for my cake. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of frosting onto the bottom, and then add my first layer of cake on there. That icing is just going to act kind of like glue and hold that cake onto the cardboard. Next, you'll start adding on your icing to your cake. And for this, you want to add more icing than I do. I did not add enough icing just because mine was a lot thinner than it was supposed to be. But if yours is thicker, you'll want to make sure you take the icing all the way to the edges and put it on there nice and thick. Next, you're going to take 1 cup of your sliced strawberries and add that on there. Try to spread them out in an even layer. And now we're just going to go ahead and repeat everything we just did with the icing in the other cup of sliced strawberries. If your icing is thicker, you'll be able to really fill in the gaps between the cake. As you can see, there's a little bit of a gap down between mine. That's literally just because my icing was too thin to really fill in that space. But if I'm being honest with you, it really didn't matter in the end. This was still so good, and it was plenty of icing. And now for the third and final layer, we're going to do this basically the same way, except this time we're going to be adding on our chopped strawberries. And that's all there is to it. This is what your cake should be looking like in the end. If your icing is thicker, you can really fill in those gaps a little bit more, but honestly, this turned out so good. I could not believe how good this cake was. We ate this in just a couple days, I'm embarrassed to say, but it was just so yummy. I honestly cannot wait to make this for my family. I think they will absolutely love it. But here's what it looks like when it is all done. I went ahead and put it on my cake serving tray, and it just looked so beautiful. And then here is what one single slice looks like. You can see all those nice layers. This cake was so soft, and just the flavors all came together really nicely. I was a little unsure of adding the jelly in with the strawberries, but you honestly can't even tell it's jelly, and they complement each other so well. And if you want to, you can even ice the sides, but I don't really think you need to. Thank you so much for celebrating my 3-year anniversary here on YouTube with me today. I really hope you enjoyed these recipes and found something that looks good to you. And if you've been here since the beginning of my YouTube journey, I just want to give you an extra big thank you for sticking it out this long. I would love if you just left me a flower down in the comments below to let me know that you did make it all the way to the end of today's video, and I will be seeing you back here very soon. Bye!